overall in the film is the Jensen speech, the corporate cosmology.
So that speech is interesting because I can't help but think that, I mean, you brought up a good point earlier. You said that Beale is essentially a fool. I mean, he's kind of like the fool in King Lear, but without King Lear, right?
Yeah.
He's speaking the truth in a sort of tempest. I mean, like when King Lear and the fool are out on the heath and he's raging against the wind, never, 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 never. And the fool is the voice of reason. But in this, I guess the two characters are kind of unified in one because he is a sort of he's an old figure. He's like a King Lear figure. He's part of this, this power structure. He's magnetic. He's charismatic. But the fool in him is saying the things that are true and to some extent. But I couldn't help but think of and As You Like It, just to bring in a purely literary element that I'm sure the screenwriter, I'm sure Chayefsky meant. I mean, he couldn't have not meant this when he wrote this. There's All the World's a Stage speech in As You Like It, which occurs right after the Fool speech. And in that, he says he goes through the seven ages of man. But this is Beale's life basically in the movie. He says all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. That's what they are in the film. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being seven. He says the lover sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress' eyebrow. So that's like Max in the movie. Then a soldier full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. That's Beale in the movie, raging against the not the dying of the light, but I guess it's being illuminated. He constantly talks about being illuminated in the movie. And then the justice. It's fair round belly with good cape unlined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances. And so he plays his part. And then I'll skip to the end. Last scene of all that ends this strange, eventful history. It's second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. And that's the on-screen assassination. So it's
Mm.
interesting that that the characters play out these roles that they're literally playing parts in the news in the movie, and then the actors are playing those roles and we're watching them as archetypes playing roles, and it's all sort of synthesized in this movie, which is this sort of the same as sort of cut and paste from Shakespeare and
Yeah.
from Milton.
Right.
um
That's a great
but
tie-in.
Jensen says he leads him into the room and he says this is Valhalla, and we get like, I mean, the staging of it really is like in Citizen Kane. We get it; it's kind of off, so we see his character sitting down
Yeah,
and
and he's
looking up.
way far away at
Yes,
untouchable at the end of this giant table.
he's in a three-piece suit. He's like the suit. He's like the suit of all suits, and Beale is sitting down and he's low in his chair and he's looking up. And of course, when we're looking up in film, we're looking at somebody who's larger than life. And he all of a sudden goes on this monologue, which seems rehearsed. I mean, it's crazy. He says, "You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you've merely stopped a business deal. That's not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back." So he's giving us a kind of an introduction or an exposition, and he says, "It's the ebb and flow, tidal gravity. It is ecological balance. You're an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations. There are no peoples. There are no Russians. There are no Arabs. There are no third worlds. There is no West. There's only one holistic system of systems, one vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars, petrodollars, interesting that it's electrodollars, um, multi-dollars. It's the international system of currency that determines the totality of life on the planet. That is the natural order of things. That is the atomic, subatomic, and galactic structure of things today. So it gives us the microcosmic and then the macrocosmic level of it. That's his sort of pyramidal view of things that he's in control of. And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature, so he ties it back in. And you will atone. So the idea of atonement is interesting because it's like he's saying to his servant here, you're going to atone for the sins that you've committed because you were running my system you were doing the things that I told you probably indirectly. They talk about sort of plausible deniability and how they can't tie in the murder directly to the news agency. And
Yeah.
so there's already a disconnect. And then here there's another disconnect. Like, you were the guy, we gave you the job, and then you were doing this stuff and we were letting it happen and it was serving our purposes. But now you have to atone in this quasi religious way for what you've committed.
Well, the assassination is the blood atonement. That's the thing, right?
Right. He says, you get up on your little 21-inch screen and howl about American democracy. There's no America. There's no democracy. And then he names the corporations. Those
yeah,
are the
it's all
nations of
fake
the
and
world
gray,
today.
which is what we've been saying over here on this channel for a long time, right? So
Yes.
the speech
Yeah.
that he gives could be the summation speech of everything that this channel has been talking about for maybe the last 10 years.
It really is. It's all, I mean, it really is all here. It's all in this movie. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a collage of corporations inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business, Mr. Beale. It's a business. And then he even brings in pond scum evolution, right? He says
It has
it's
been since man crawled out of the slime.
Yes. You will live to see that perfect world, Brave New World, in which there's no war and famine, oppression, or brutality. One vast and ecumenical holding company for whom all men will work to serve a common profit, in which all men will hold a share of stock. You know, you all get your UBI, all necessities provided, all anxieties tranquilized. You take your Soma and your
Yep.
your fentanyl meth. All borders, all board. He should have said borders. He kind of implied that. All boredom amused. Right, you'll go to your
Entertainment,
your
Coonpod. Yeah.
your pervert entertainment, and I have chosen you. So he's chosen to preach this evangel.
Yeah, he's the
Mr.
prophet
Beale.
Christ figure preaching this gospel of Brave New World, exactly. Which is, by the way, New Age. In the Huxley novel, it's a New Age, religion that they have, which we just covered that when we broke down Brave New World recently. And Huxley's a key figure in the New Age movement. He went and was a mover and shaker at Esalen. So that's why we've seen the New Age thread throughout this movie, which I didn't actually, like I said, like I'd watched about 20 minutes of this movie 10 years ago, and I never finished it. Not because it was bad, it's just I got distracted at the time and just never finished it. And I always heard the clips, because Lord Voldemort's played the clips for 20 years, and I just never thought much about it. And I'm glad that I did finally go and watch it, because there's so much in this movie that you don't expect to be there. I did not expect this New Age thread running throughout it, but yeah, he is essentially a prophet, a Christ preaching figure for this new this Brave New World.
We what I think is probably the best part of this whole of the screenplay here. I mean, look, I do a literature channel, so it's all books, right? And we cover, we occasionally cover movies or movies based in books. But I think that this screenplay will make it's already in the sort of canon of screen. I would consider this one of the best screenplays I've ever seen. It's so well written, and I think that this thing is so revelatory, so tight. And he says, my favorite part at the end is he says, Howard slowly. This is not in the film. This is the direction, in the screenplay. It says Howard slowly rises from the blackness of his seat so that he is lit only by the ethereal diffusion of light shooting out from the rear of the room. He stares at Jensen spotted on the podium, transfixed. It's religious language, right? This is Illuminate confirmed. He says, it's like we're about to go through the portal, right? To the top. And he says, Howard all of a sudden says, what an odd line to say. He says, I've seen the face of God, which is a culmination of where he's been headed throughout this thing. But of course, he's a nihilistic prophet.
It's also, by the way, a reference to the beatific vision, right? So this is the beatific vision of the Latin Roman Catholic Church, which is that to see God is to see, the essence, to see everything, to see, reality in toto, in terms of its full meaning and full significance. Orthodoxy, we don't have that. We have a doctrine of seeing the divine energies, but It's beatific vision language on purpose, but it's not beatific vision of God. It's the God of the world system, who is the, essentially the controlling oligarchy.
To me, it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse of the Antichrist in terms of this guy is an emissary,
well put,
right?
Well put, yeah.
And he says, because he says, I think I've seen the face of God. And Jensen says, you just might be right.
You just might be right, yeah.
So
that's it. By the way, that's the same way that Moustapha Aman talks in Brave New World. He uses this Christ-like language as well, right? When we have that weird creeper chapter about the PEDO stuff, I think it's the end of chapter 3, and he says, "Let the children come unto me," right? So Moustapha Aman is also this antichrist type of figure,
which is a really, I mean, I'm sure people have read the book or they read it in school, but it's interesting to go back and reread the book and look at exactly what you're looking at in that scene, especially in that scene. It's so unbelievable what happens in that scene, in the creeper scene. I think that, the sort of Luciferian satanic pandemonium language is kind of tied up in a bow at the end when, of course, we get the Sybil, the soothsayer, and then we get, Hackett says about Jensen. So Jensen has made his appearance and then he's disappeared, right? He's gone back to, under the capstone or wherever he is. And he says he is intractable and adamantine. And again, that comes from Paradise Lost, where it says, he says, him the almighty power hurled headlong from the ethereal sky with hideous ruin and combustion down to bottomless perdition, there to dwell in adamantine chains and penal fire, who durst defy the omnipotent to arms. And he says adamantine because it's Adamic, it's Adam, right? Because in Paradise Lost, Satan's whole MO is to go back to Earth to destroy God's creation so that he can, it's just like in the movie Prisoners. They want to undo God's creation by destroying people and their faith in God. And he does that in Paradise Lost by entering the Garden of Eden in the guise of the serpent. And then the fall of man occurs. So,
right.
So, yeah.